I have the TIFF file from the Origin loaded into Siril, and as you can see, it looks all black. So the first thing I'm going to do to actually view it is to enable the auto stretch. The next thing you noticed is the file is all bluish, so we need to do a color correction. Although first I'm just going to crop the image to make it a little smaller to just get the region of interest that we're interested in, and do crop. So now things work a little faster with less data. So I go into image processing, color calibration, photometric color calibration. First I have to tell it what we're looking at. I type in M1, hit find. It did find it. Verify that the focal length and pixel size are correct. If it's not correct, you have to manually type these in. Hit OK. And then it does the color calibration. And so now we have correct colors. So at this point, I could continue to process it in Siril, but in this case, I'm just going to directly save it as a TIFF and then continue my work in Affinity Photo. But before I save it, I want to get out of this auto stretch mode, put it back in linear, and save it as a linear file. So then up here I hit save, and I'm going to rename it. I'll just call it color correction, so I know what file I'm using. Maybe M1 color correction.tiff. And some of this is off screen, but I'm going to hit save. And I will just save it as a 16-bit unsigned TIFF. Okay, so next I'm going to close Siril and then open up that file in Affinity Photo. Okay, here is that exported TIFF file from Siril with the color correction loaded into Affinity Photo. Since it's a linear and we have not yet done a stretch, it still shows up as all black with only a few of the brightest stars barely showing up. So to see the data, I'm going to do a series of linear adjustments with levels. And I'm going to be playing with the gamma by sliding it to the left and also working on the black levels. So by sliding this to the left, I can start to see the nebulosity. And I'm going to hit merge and then do this a couple more times with levels. And now notice there's all this area to the left of the curves. I can move the black level over, but be sure not to clip the data where the data starts. And then I can do levels again. I mean the gamma again to make everything brighter. Hit merge and maybe do one more level just with the black level to move this over a bit, being careful not to clip. Hit merge. And at this point, I don't have the stars blown out yet and have the nebulosity just starting to show up. So at this point, I'm going to do a trick with Affinity Photo to get two different layers, one with just the stars and one with just the nebulosity. I'm going to rename this original, make a copy of that layer, and call this starless turn off that top layer, have the bottom one selected. Now I have a plugin I had bought and integrated into Affinity Photo called StarExterminator, and I'm going to now use that on the selected starless layer here. So filters, plugins, Astrophoto, StarExterminator. And so this will take a couple minutes to run, so I will hit OK and let this run, and I will pause the video while it's running. Okay, that finished. Here you can see the truly starless layer here with no stars. Now I'm going to do another trick to get a layer with only the stars. So I'm going to activate this, select this top layer, change this mode here to difference. What that means, it takes a difference between this layer and the starless layer, which will produce a layer with only the stars. But I want this as a single layer, so I'm going to hit Document Flatten to temporarily just get this one layer here. I'm going to rename this Stars, and then make a copy of this, Control C. Then I go back in the history at the bottom to just before I flattened it, and turn this layer off, select Starless, and then hit Control V to paste the stars layer back in. Then change my mode here to screen, which makes it show the stars layer and the starless layer at the same time. And so now I have basically my original image back again after my levels stretch, but I have the ability to turn on and off these layers independently and work on them independently. So now I'm going to select the starless layer and do some further adjustments here. So next I will go into curves and can click on picker and darken the background just a little bit and pick some faint nebulosity here and increase that. So we can play around with these to actually bring out the contrast where we're having a lot of change where the data really matters. We can do this a couple times. Maybe one more time. We could bump up the go into the vibrance here. I can just make the colors a little bit more intense. And now one little trick in the to bring out the contrast here is to use this feature called the tone mapping persona. And a little of this is off screen. I will let this finish here. The initial results won't be good, but we can adjust these things. So I'm gonna, the tone compression was way too much. I'm gonna turn that back down most of the way, or maybe all the way, and just play a little bit with this local contrast, and that will bring out the contrast here. And we could play around with the exposure. That might be too much. Tone compression, we can play a little bit with this and try to find what looks good between the tone compression and the local contrast. And we could even adjust the black point, but I'm afraid that adjusted too much, so I'm not going to adjust that here. And I'm going to call that good enough for this step and hit apply. Okay, that applies it back to the document. And you notice in the histogram there's still a little bit of space here that we could recover. So I'm going to go into levels, and you can just slide this over a little bit to basically darken the background without affecting the nebulosity. And I'm happy with that. I can hit merge again. So now we have the background pretty dark and the nebulosity looking good. We could probably do a little bit more, maybe with curves. Just lower it down a little bit over here and raise it up a little bit over here. Kind of play around with this until we get something what we want, what looks good. So now the background here is pretty dark, and the nebulosity looks good. We click on the star layer, we can see what they look like. We could go into the stars only layer and play around here. There's a couple things I could do. I could make the stars brighter if I don't think they're quite bright enough, or I could see if I can tighten the stars up with a plugin. In my case, I will try to use this Topax Lab plugin on here. And I'll pause it while this loads. Yeah? Okay, I'll be up in a couple minutes. I'm doing a video. I'll need a few more minutes. And I can pick which one I like better. I think this clear looks better. I'm going to hit apply. Let that integrate back in. Here I'm back in, so the stars are a little more tight here. And I can do the same plugin with the nebulosity part to see if I can get rid of some of this graininess in the image here. Filters, plugins, Topax Lab. Let that load in. Okay, I have a few options here. I typically like to do the severe noise since there's so much graininess here. And that kind of blurs this out a little bit. See on the left where the original one was, and on the right is after it did the denoise. So I like that. So I'm going to hit apply and let that apply that back to the original image. So here we are with the original image with the starless. I'm going to turn stars back on. And now we're at a point where we can go ahead and save the image. File, save. Save that, and then to get a JPEG file, export. And JPEG is going to be 124 kilobytes, which is pretty small since we cropped it in so much at 85%. quality. So hit save. Hit export and save. And this is my final JPEG image of M1 that I did during this video. So you can see how it ended up looking.